Dominic Bazile here. He's going to show you some hip-hop production techniques. Accompanying him is another Studio One guru, Byron Gaither. So you got 2 for 1 today.
Awesome.
I'm just going to say real quick, and Dominic's driving this thing, but he's going to go through a bunch of stuff that, as far as beats and putting some things together. And if he gets through it all and he's got time to get to the second session he's got going, that's going to be the one in the presentation that's coming up after this with Khalid Glover, Grammy-winning engineer, producer, worked with everybody, and he's going to take the tracks that Dominic has put together and work on those in the next session, and then also talk about his techniques and stuff. So it's going to be really great. So after this one, there's a 30-minute break. Definitely come back and catch the continuation of this with Khalid at the end of this. And take it away, Dom.
Thanks a lot, Byron. So yeah, I'll be talking about beat and track creation using Studio One, more so in the hip-hop realm, but definitely don't assume that all of this applies only to hip-hop. You can definitely use it in any type of genre of music, even country or Zydeco, whatever you do. So hopefully you'll learn something that you can take home and try it when you get home. Also, I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks to kind of speed up your workflow, and then we'll look at automating some different things, parameters, and that sort of thing to kind of spice up the track. And then we'll also look at some mixed things, how I kind of mix and organize my mix and that sort of thing. And then hopefully we'll be able to get to that second track that I'll be looking at in Khalid's presentation later on. So first off, let's just start with I have a blank slate here. I'm at the Studio One start screen, all right? And basically, when I sit down in my studio, I try to get inspiration from something. So, I want to figure out, well, how do I start? What am I going after? Now, this may be, something I hear in my head. Maybe it's a tune, a melody, or a beat. Maybe it's a sample I heard, that I thought was dope and wanted to, work with and do something with in Studio One. So a lot of times I'll just start from a template. I'll just go ahead, create a new song, and go to user. And over the years of producing different genres of music, I've amassed maybe 20 or so templates, and I'll just have them all listed here, and I'll just select a template. Now, a template is good because you don't want to have to waste time trying to pull in VSTs. Although it's really quick and easy to set that up, it's even faster if you already have it set up in a session format where you have your guitar tracks already set with whatever plugin you want, or you have VST set with some sort of preset that's close to a typical sound that you would use. So definitely, working from a template helps me to just kind of get going really, really fast and not waste a lot of time. And I can get my ideas out really, really fast and just be creative and not have to worry about technology holding me back or stifling my creativity. So in this example, I'm just going to start from a empty slate. So I have an empty song here. Let me change the time base to bars. All right. For a hip-hop record, typically I do southern type of hip-hop, and I'll change the BPM. I may start at about 87 or so. About 88 and below is typically what the range that I'll use. But I'm going to start at 87 here. And so I was talking about inspiration. Where do I start? I have this blank slate now. Where do I start? Well, for this particular record, what I did was I found a sample. This was an old 70s sample that I just sampled from a record straight into Studio One. And I just thought it'd be really cool to kind of chop it up and assign it to my little Akai MPD controller and just kind of replay the samples. So let's just find the sample here. So I'm in the Studio One browser under Files, and I'm just browsing the hard drive. So here is Headlights. That's the name of the sample because that's the name of the track from this particular soundtrack that I use. And I'm going to just audition it here by double-clicking. Can y'all hear that? Now that's not playing correctly because I have the tempo icon here. So it's actually time stretching it to fit the tempo the global tempo that I have here. So I'm going to let it play at its original, form. Let's just start it from the beginning. There we go. All right, so you can kind of tell that came from a soundtrack. Some dramatic scene happened there. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and drag and drop that sample right into my timeline here.
I want to mention one thing that Dominic was saying about the browser. The little metronome icon at the bottom, when it's lit up, it's going to play anything in the browser at the song tempo, at the song that you're working at. If you want to hear it, like he just did, at the original tempo it was recorded at, you're going to deselect that. And then that way, because sometimes you might be bringing a sample in that's dramatically at a different tempo than what it was originally recorded, and if it sounds funny, you'll know why. You can go back and check it and go, wow, I'm trying to play this thing half speed or twice as fast. It's probably a bit of a stretch.
Right. Yeah, that's a very useful feature for trying to sample or audition sounds in context with your session song. So you may have something already there in your arrangement, and you want to hear how it sounds along with everything else. I do that often. So, okay, now I have the sample here. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is also instantiate or pull up the impact instrument. I'm going to just drag and drop. And we have impact. And what I'm going to do, and I could have done this from the browser, just drag it right onto a pad, but I'm going to just do this from the arrangement, because sometimes what I'll do is just go ahead and do some light editing, of something, maybe take that out and then assign to a pad. But so it's just multiple ways to kind of do the same thing. All right, so now I have the sample assigned to this pad, and I'm using a Akai, MPC style controller here. And so if I just tap my pad here, it plays the sample, right? We'll just stop it. All right, at this point, I'm going to start editing my sample, okay? First thing I'm going to do, because I want to get, I don't want to use the whole sample. I'm going to chop it up, okay, and assign it to different pads. So I'm going to edit the start and end point of this sample. And the way that we do that in Impact is we just put your mouse at the right edge of the wave editor here, or the waveform view. And if you click and drag, you can actually adjust the endpoint of that sample. So you start to see this dark gray area here. That's the part we don't want, okay? So everything that's light over here gets played when I trigger the sample. So I'm gonna actually just drag this over a little more, and it only plays that. Now, another important thing to do whenever you're editing samples this way and you're editing start and end points is to zoom in so that you can actually edit the start or end point at the zero crossing in the waveform. Because if you don't do that, what you'll end up with is a click, a little pop or click. So I got rid of that click. So if I were to have it here, I don't want that. So I want it to sound clean. All right. And then also, I want to edit the start point of this sample. I have a little space, looking at the waveform, I have a little space here, and I want to kind of eliminate that so that when I hit the pad, it's actually starting the initial transient. It's instant, right? So you kind of hear a little pop there, so I'm going to just zoom in a little more just to get a little more precise. All right, that'll work for me right now. I can go all day just trying to get things super perfect, but we don't have that type of time today. All right, so that's going to be the first chop, okay? What I'm going to do next is, because what I'm going to do is copy this pad to other pads. So it's going to copy that sample to other pads on here, and then I'm going to edit start and end points for those samples as well. But I have some other parameters I'm going to set, like the filter, and I want those parameters to copy as well. So I'm going to work on this one pad first, and then I'm going to copy it. So first thing I'm going to do, let me just edit this back out just so we can hear a longer sample. The sample is slow, and it's a little too slow for what I want, so what I'm going to do is actually transpose it up a little bit. And what that's going to do is speed it up. So there's no time stretching going on in Impact right now. It's kind of the traditional analog sampler type of way to speed up things. You just transpose it up and it speeds it up. So I already know beforehand I want to transpose this up about 3 half steps. And so now if I play it, all right, so it's a little faster, and of course it's pitched up. I also know that because this is an old sample, it was recorded on old tape or what have you. Sometimes the pitch of the record doesn't always stay consistent. So typical keyboards, pianos, they're all tuned to A440. So the tuning was not right when I first tried this out. So I'm going to tune this sample as well. And I already know that it's supposed to be at about 46 to get it about A440. Because what's going to happen later on is I'm going to layer more sounds on top of it, and I want everything to be in tune with each other. So I have to pitch the sample up. And how I'm doing that is in this section here, in the pitch section of Impact, you have your transpose and your tune. So I transposed it up 3 half steps, and then 46 cents. All right. All right, so now we have that. All right, great. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the filter section. I want the sample to have a certain sound. I don't want it to sound as full, and so I'm going to add a high-pass filter. And what this will allow me to do is, because I'm layering other sounds on top of it, especially bass and an 808 and another type of kick, I don't want my low end to be too muddy. So I'm going to filter out a lot of the low end using a high-pass filter. And Impact actually gives you some options here for high-pass filters. So I'm going to just choose this one, a high-pass filter, 24 dB. And I'm going to set the cutoff, the point at which it starts cutting off those low-end frequencies, at about 130. All right, I think that's good. And then now when I play the sample, you see it's not as full now. So I'm going to just toggle the filter on and off. So this is the filter off, more low end. And then this is the filter on. All right? So it sounds a little cleaner. This will fit better in the mix later on when we go to mix it. Okay? Otherwise, I would have to do more EQing in the mix stage. All right, moving on. The next parameter I'm going to adjust here in Impact is going to be my play mode. Play mode is basically how the behavior of this pad, how it triggers the sample. All right, one option is one-shot poly. That's your default. This means that anytime you hit the pad to trigger the sample, it's going to play the sample. If I hit it multiple times, it's going to play the sample on top of itself multiple times. And I don't necessarily want that. So I'll get something like this. All right, this is what I'll get with one-shot poly. And I don't necessarily want that. So I'm going to choose one-shot mono so that it behaves monophonically. That means every time I hit the sample, every time I hit the pad, it's going to trigger that sample at the start point every single time, and it's going to behave monophonically. So only one instance of that sample is playing. Yeah, it cuts off the playing. So here's the behavior with one-shot mono. All right. So that's what I want. Also, there's another parameter called choke, and it's actually group choke. So if I click here, you get options of 1 through 4. So you have 4 groups of choke. What choke is, you can set multiple pads to the same choke group, and every pad in that group will behave monophonically. So any pad will cut off another pad in that same group. A
common way to use that would be when you're building a kit and you've got a closed hi-hat, open hi-hat and pedal hi-hat, you put those in the same group, so now when you hit the open hi-hat and then hit the closed one, it cuts off the open hi-hat, so you get the right behavior that you're looking for. You don't get the open hi-hat continually ringing with the other
Right.
one playing underneath.
And I'll
You
show
want
that.
one sound.
I'll show that once I import the drum sounds as well. Good point. So I'm going to set the choke group to be 1. And let's see. Let me just re-edit my endpoint here. A little bit of click. That'll work for me now. All right, so now I'm going to copy this pad now that I've set all these parameters. The way you copy a pad in Impact, there's a modifier key on Mac called Command, and you command, click and drag to the next pad, and it copies that pad. Now on PC it would be Control. So you hold Control, click and drag from one pad to the other, and it copies. So now if I go to this next pad, it plays the whole sample. However, it copied all of my other parameters. So it copied the other parameters, right? But now I have to re-edit the sample so that I get a new chop, if you will. So let me just edit here. All right, now I'm gonna copy again to the next pad. And let's see. No, and for me, I don't necessarily want that because I'm gonna re-edit it anyway. You know.
The time-saving part is that the parameters that he set, the filter and the tuning and all that stuff, remains. And like he said, that way you've got one thing. You can lay it across several pads and now start piecing it out quickly and still have that overall sound that you already set up.
All right, and then I'm gonna copy one more time. Right about there. And try to get the click out here. All right, that'll work for me. All right, great. So now I have 4 chops here. I've basically taken a sample, a pre-existing recording, and now I can rearrange that recording any way I like and be creative with it. So, all right, and then I can record that. And a lot of hip-hop records have just been based on doing just that, just taking pre-existing material or recordings and just rearranging the samples. And then stacking drums and other instrumentation on top of that. So right now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to use this as my instrument, and I'm just going to record. Let me mute this track here, kind of get that out the way. And I'm going to set up a 4-bar loop. 3, 4. Yeah.
For safety's sake.
I'm going to just store this preset. Let's see. Headlights.
What he's doing now is just sort of a good habit to get into, too, is that when you're doing stuff that's somewhat time-consuming in the edits that you're making, as you get 3 or 4 steps in, you might want to save that and put it so that should anything happen, you already got that part there and you can bring it up next time and just continue on working.
Very good point.
It's because I've been burned.
Oh, yeah.
Many times.
I learned using some other software to always save.
And it's always when the thought crosses your mind, like, I should probably freeze, you know, just right before.
All right, so now I set up a 4-bar loop here, and I always offset, always start like 2 bars in, maybe even 4 bars in. Just kind of leave me some space if I want to do something else at the beginning. And so I'm going to just start recording. I'm going to engage my click, which I always use the letter C to engage the click. And then I'm going to engage this pre-count. That's a new feature as of 2.6. I used to use the pre-roll, but now I can use pre-count. And that'll give me a 4-bar count in before it actually starts recording.
Do you guys know the difference in Studio One between pre-roll and pre-count? Pre-roll is going to let you hear what's playing if there's some other stuff in the song for the bar or two that you set as pre-roll. Pre-count is just going to give you and then in, and the value of that is sometimes if you're working with a singer and maybe the bridge of a song is in a completely different modulation, different key than say the chorus, and the previous section is throwing them off from finding their note, pre-count is great because you let them find their note and then it just counts them in and they can come right in. Pre-roll, sometimes we say you're recording a guitar solo or something, pre-roll is good if he wants to play some pickup notes or lead into what he's going to be laying down.
Right. I would typically use pre-roll because I do a lot of loop-based, not loop-based, but I'll record in sections. And so if I'm doing acoustic guitar, I'll use the pre-roll so I can hear maybe 4 or 8 bars before, not 4, but 4 or 8 counts before I actually need to start recording. And sometimes when you've highlighted a loop like I have and you start recording on it, if you're playing something like an acoustic guitar, your initial strum may actually precede the loop point. And so by doing a pre-count, or pre-roll rather, you'll always have that initial strum and it won't get cut off or anything.
And in Studio One, you can set pre-record up to a minute,
right,
so that if you do something cool or you say you come in just ahead of the beat, even though it may not show up when you hit stop, it is there. You can just peel the waveform back and whatever was recording for how many seconds you set ahead of it will be there.
Right. I use that all the time. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and record this. Let me, okay, had to find my pads. Let's do that over. One more time. Let me see. Let me make sure my BPM's right. Yeah, I'm at 84. All right, so at that point, I may do some light editing to kind of get it more perfect. Usually when I do samples like this, I won't quantize it because of the way the sample is. It's not going to be perfectly in time, and also it's going to add a different feel if I quantize it too hard. So I hardly ever quantize when I do sample MIDI recording or sample triggering. So I may actually just double click here on a MIDI event and just kind of edit some things in the MIDI editor. I won't do that right now, but what I'm going to do next is actually, at this point, I would be ready to just go ahead and start stacking drums on top of this. So let's just open our Impact again, and we're going to import some drum sounds. So back in the Files browser, I'm going to find my samples. So I got some samples here. I have an 808 snare, drag it right onto a pad there. I got this little hit. And I just love using the browser Studio One because I can just sample drum sounds. I have hundreds of drum sounds. And just by pressing up and down on my keyboard, I can, find a drum sound really quickly. It saves a lot of time versus having to just drag something in, try it out, nah, I don't like that, or just double clicking each one of these to have to play it. I just play one and just press up and down on my arrow keys, and I can audition any sample that's in that list.
The other thing that's cool about Impact in the browser, and I've set up my default Impact kit as being an empty kit, is that if you do have a collection of sounds, you've got a bunch of snare drums, a bunch of kicks or whatever, I've made like entire Impact kits of all kicks or of all snares and things like that, because you can grab multiple files over in the browser. If you've got an empty Impact kit, you could grab 16 files and drag them in, and it'll load all of them into every pad just like that.
All right, so here are my drum sounds. All right, so I have 808 hi-hat samples. I have a closed one and an open one. And so what Byron was talking about earlier, using a choke group, comes in handy when you have to handle cymbals, because you may want them to behave, since these are synthetic cymbals, hi-hats rather, but I want them to behave like acoustic hi-hats.
And you want the closed one to close the open one.
Right, exactly. So at this point, I can press both of those samples, and you hear both of them at the same time, and I don't want that. So if I hit the open one, the closed one does not choke the open one. So this is why I would set a choke group for both of these samples here. So I'm going to set it to 2, because we're already using choke group 1 for our, our initial samples. So I'm going to use choke group 2 here and assign that to both of these pads. All right, so now when I play them, the closed hi-hat stops or chokes the open hi-hat sound. So it's more like a traditional or real, hi-hat behavior. All right. So now at this point, I'm ready to go ahead and just start doing some drum recording. What I'm going to do is duplicate my track. Now that's a command that's in the track menu, duplicate right here, but I've set a shortcut for it because I do this often. So I want to be able to do things fast and not have to go to a menu to reach them. So I encourage you to learn your shortcuts, add new shortcuts.
One thing to keep in mind with MIDI instruments, when you duplicate a track, it's the same instrument. It's making a second track, but they are using the same instrument. If you want an independent, which means if you adjust the volume on the mixer, you're only going to see one fader on the mixer, and it's going to affect the volume of both of those. But what he's doing is he's just keeping that MIDI part of the record samples separate from the beat he's about to lay down. But if you actually wanted independent volume control and of the instruments, you would actually drag in a new Impact kit, and it would create one that's separate from the one that's already there.
Right, that's correct. One thing we will do, so if you notice, I opened up the mixer here. If I play some of these samples, you see they're all on the same fader. Later on, I don't want that, so what I'm going to do is set up a multi-out where I actually mult out each sound to a different fader in my mixer so I can mix it properly.
That's the other, excuse me, that's the other powerful thing about Impact, is that it gives you 8 mono outs and 8 stereo outs, so you can really separate things once you're ready to mix and get towards the later stages of the production.
Right. So I'm going to just go ahead and start recording my drums here. We do want the click on now. I'm going to stop it here. I can keep loop recording that and just adding new elements, but one thing that's throwing me off here is my buffer size is at 1024. So I'm going to just lower that to, I can deal with 128. I'll just go ahead and continue to record here. So it sounds a little sloppy right now, but we're going to quantize some things. Normally, I would have started off at a lower buffer size so that I could get the timing right. Don't really have a lot of time, so I'm not going to go back and re-record that. But what I will do is take this out, because I did not play that correctly, and just start recording again. All right, so that's that. That's all the drum elements. There's one more that I need to add, and that's dealing with the hi-hat. I want a rolling hi-hat going into the end of the 4-bar loop there. Let me just go ahead and do this. Now, all of my drum MIDI data is in one MIDI event here. And I may want to edit each one of those sounds differently. I may want to quantize the snare differently than I quantize my kick or my hi-hat. So what I'm going to do here is an awesome feature that I love called Explode to Pitches. So under the event menu, you'll find Explode to Pitches. And what this does, it actually creates several instrument tracks for each pitch that was recorded. So now I have my hi-hats on a different instrument track, my kick on a different instrument track. Every sound that I played is on a different instrument track. And what I'm going to do is find my kick. It even labels it for you. Here's my kick. And let's see. So I don't hear the kick there. I'm going to just go ahead and add it because it got truncated some kind of way. And I'm just Option, click, drag to copy it. Right. What I just did there was copy all of these events, or select all of these events by holding down Command and then clicking on the note or the name of the sample that I wanted, and it'll select everything on that note. And so now what I'm going to do is quantize this. All right. I typically don't hard quantize too much, but I'm going to just do it now. Sometimes I'll add a swing, so I think I did want to add a swing of like 13%. And we'll apply that, and that shifts those. All right. Then I'm going to go to my snare. Get out of the editor. Let's go to my snare, and I'm going to select the rim clap as well, and I'm going to quantize those. And then I'm going to quantize the hi-hat. All right, so it's starting to tighten up now. It may be too tight for some people, and it's something you could definitely play around with. You definitely want to get that feel that you're after, especially when using a sample. You want the drums to fit with the sample, with the swing of the sample, and that sort of thing. So that's something that you can actually just play around with, different types of swings and grooves.
Yeah, well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
One thing I would recommend too is checking out using the Exchange in the browser, because there are a whole bunch of MPC groove templates in there, and I use those probably 99% of the time over just a straight 16th note. I'll find like an MPC 3000 16th note at maybe 51 or 52, 53%, and it just gives it's a more musical feel. And I always use that as a starting point. And then the other thing you can do when you're quantizing is set the percentage, you set the strength. So maybe you're going to do, you're going to quantize it, but at like 80% or 75%. And you'll find that it does tighten it up, but it doesn't sound so robotic
Rigid.
at that point.
Yeah, robotic. So yeah, I love all of the features for quantizing, all of the options here. You can actually set quantized presets. And like he said, you can. I downloaded the MPC grooves from the Exchange. If you're not familiar with that, that's going to be in the browser under Files. And
I mean, there's a bunch of great ones up there too. It's not just MPC, but there's like the SP12, the old EMU SP12 drum machine groove templates are in there, and the ASR10. So you can get nice kind of cool subtle variations.
All right. So I've kind of quantized some things to tighten it up. And right now in the music editor, I'm looking at the hi-hat MIDI events. And I said at the end I wanted a rolling type of hi-hat sound. So I'm going to just delete what's already there. And I'm going to open the record panel. The record panel is under the view menu. Is it? I usually just do my shortcut, so I'm gonna just do that. But where is it? There it is. Under the view menu, record panel. This is why shortcuts are important, because I don't have to search for things now. I just know, bam, and it's there. All right, so in the record panel, you get some options for when you record your events, and these relate to MIDI as well as audio. Some things only relate to MIDI, and some things only relate to audio. So in this regard, I'm going to engage note repeat. Note repeat is a feature you'll see on MPCs and other drum machines, and basically allows you to just hold down a note, and it'll repeat that note at your quantized value. So my quantized value is going to be at 1/16th right now. I'm going to set it faster. Let's just go ahead and do that, 1/64th. And so now when I play, all right, I kind of get that. I'm just holding down a key. I'm not even, let's see, let's do it out here so you can actually get the effect. I'm just holding down a key. And it continues to play that note at 1/64th, of the tempo. So I'm going to add that. Let's record that. All right, kind of missed that initial one. But that's already quantized because it knows to record that at 1/64th note, of the bar. And so now I have this. We'll start at the beginning of the loop. All right, that little hit does not sound good. Let's quantize that a little bit. Dirty hit. I'm going to leave it like that because I'm going to skip forward to another session that actually has this already done. Let's see, anything else I need to review here? Multi-out. So I talked about multi-out, and that's just basically assigning each sound and the impact to a different fader so that I can mix them individually in the Studio One mixer. And the way we do that is really, really simple. You open impact, of course, and then you go to the pad you want to assign to a multi-out. And so this dry kick is already set to stereo 1. Well, I'm going to leave my sample at stereo 1 output. So I'm going to just click here and choose stereo 2, and automatically you see that a new fader gets added to my mixer. I'm going to do the same here for the dry hit.
The nice thing about this, too, is you break out the individual outputs on impact. Is not just that you have individual volume control, but now you can add specific effects. You can put a different compressor and EQ on the kick drum and a completely different compression and EQ on the snare, and you're treating it like a mic'd drum kit where everything would be on its own track.
Definitely. So now, let me just put this away. I have all of my sounds on a different fader. I will just pull these down a little bit. All right, so that's the kick. Let me do it this way. That's hi-hat here. All right, that's the open hi-hat. The snare. All right, all on different faders. All right, so I can mix that how I want. All right, And I'll typically do that. And sometimes I may not even render this out. I'll just mix the whole song once it's done, just like this with the VSTs already instantiated. All right, so let's move on. I have another session here. All right, so here's the finished drum track. Everything's quantized the way I want it. Everything's malted the way I like. I kind of did a little mix, to get the track the way I wanted it. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some new instrumentation here. So what I'm going to do is add something to the low end. I'm going to add a 808 kick using sample 1. So let's find the 808 kick. That's it. And I'm going to right-click here in the browser and choose Send to New Sample 1. All right. What this does is it sends it to sample 1, and it assigns it to a key, a root, which is C3. I just moved it. You see here, C3 is the root, so that's the original sample. But what it also does is it expands it across the entire keyboard, across the entire 88 keys. So now it's going to be pitched. So now I have a pitched sample, and I can play that on my keyboard as a new instrument. So I have a keyboard synth over here, a Blofeld. It has its own internal sounds, but I'm also using it as a keyboard controller. And I have it basically connected via MIDI cables to an audio box as my MIDI interface. So if I have a new track with my 808 kick assigned to it in sample 1. So I can now play this on my keyboard at different pitch levels. And that's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a pitched 808 sound. So let me see. All right, so let's go ahead and record that. Let me make sure my click is on. And I'm going to zoom out here. All right, click engage, pre-count on. Yeah. Right, I did that same thing when I was rehearsing.
Make sure you turn off note repeat.
So note repeat's still on. I'm gonna turn that off.
And you'll know right away, because if it doesn't feel like it's hitting on the downbeat, then it just starts scrolling along.
All right, so let's try that one more time. Disengage, record. All right, let's look at the MIDI data. I always do this. Because I'm not a perfect keyboard player, sometimes I may hit a bad note, which I did right here. So I'll just double click and it's gone. All right. I'm gonna select those and I'm gonna just quantize it. So that's going to be the 808 sound, and that's just using sample 1. Really easy, import. I have a pitched 808 sound, and you can do that with any sample. I did this demonstration yesterday using sample 1 for sound design and just how you can import any type of sound. I imported a sound from this Blofeld and was able to kind of almost recreate the exact same sound just in sample 1. So you can layer sounds in sample 1 and just really come up with your own sounds and make your own sounds inside of Studio One that nobody else has. All right, next, I'll just show you some of the parameters that we can actually adjust in sample 1, because what I'm going to do is I want this sample to also behave monophonically. So there's a monophonic button here that we're going to engage so that I don't have too much buildup in the bass. You probably heard it. And then also, let's see, my amp section. Yeah, I'm going to increase the ADSR release so that it actually sustains whenever I hit it. All right, so it's less clutter. So let's listen to it now that I've done that. Let's increase the volume. actually didn't play something correctly because my quantize is set at 1/8. All right, I think that's right. All right, great. So that's exactly the way I want it now. All right. So let's see what's next. All right, now we're going to add some other elements. I'm going to use a sound out of the Blofeld. To do that, I need first an instrument track, and I need an audio track as well, because I need the audio, which is connected via an audio cable from the Blofeld to my audio box. I need that because some people don't understand that MIDI only carries control data. It does not carry audio data at all. So it only carries the data that tells you what note to play on the keyboard, how to play it, how loud to play it, how, and if you want a modulation or any other, MIDI parameter, but it does not carry the audio signal. So you need audio cables from your synthesizer connected via to your interface.
MIDI's affecting any sound, it's affecting the sound that's in the keyboard, but to hear the keyboard, to record it, you need to route the audio into your interface as well and lay that on on an audio track.
This is my audio track, and then I need an instrument track as well. And then here in this menu, I can also set the input, which is going to be the Blofeld because I'm using it as a controller. And then also the output is going to be the Blofeld because I'm using it as an instrument. And whenever you do anything like this, you always want to turn local off on your synthesizer because you don't want it to sound twice, which is the local sound. So you turn the local sounds off so that you're only working with MIDI here, MIDI in and MIDI out. All right, I'm going to click OK here. And then for my audio track, I'm just going to monitor it. I'm not going to record it audio-wise. I could if I wanted to, but I'm going to record it MIDI-wise. And so I have the MIDI track record enabled and the audio track monitor enabled. So now let's go ahead and record that. I'm going to just turn down this track a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and record that. All right, so I recorded the MIDI, and so it's now just playing, it's triggering the synthesizer. All right? I haven't recorded any audio. I could if I wanted to, and I could actually definitely render that to an audio file if I wanted to as well. You had input it? No? Okay. So that's basically that. If I wanted to render this, I could actually, what's the best way, instrument to? I can transform this to audio track. Usually I just go ahead and just bounce. And it'll ask you, your track name, your record input, which this is connected to 1. And then I'll hit bounce track. And it has to play it real time because it's an external synthesizer. So this is something you cannot do offline. So it's actually just bouncing this MIDI. All right, great. So that's the audio render of what I just recorded MIDI-wise on the Blofeld. And I can actually just hide these tracks if I wanted to. Bam, bam, and those are gone because I have the audio. And if I wanted to make changes, I can just go back to the MIDI track, make my changes, and just re-render the audio. There's several ways to do this. That was just one. That's why I always use it, just bounce and bam. I use the key command for bounce, but you can find that under one of these menus. So going on, I'm going to add another sound. It's a present sound. So I'm going to go to the browser again, go to sounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just search for it. I already know it's called Gate LFO. All right, and there it is. And I'm going to just click and drag. Very easy, very simple. I haven't wasted any time looking for the sound or anything. It's right there. And so now I have an instrument track. It's already record enabled, and I can play this sound. All I'm going to add this to the track now, layer. That's that track. I think I had another sound, but we're just going to go forward. So let's just go to the next session. That's basically all of the instrumentation. There's one more thing that we need to do, and that's to format the track. Now, formatting the track means I take this loop now, and I want to put it into song format. All right, so how I start that is I'll just go ahead and select all of these tracks, just click and drag to select all of them, and I'll hit D for duplicate. And I'll keep doing that for a while, maybe about 3.5 minutes or so. And then once I have this, I'll go ahead and just start eliminating or removing things so that I can format it in a verse, chorus, type of fashion for an artist to go ahead and write to and then record. So I'll just start maybe taking a couple of items out here, maybe a group of things here. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. And then I'll keep going in that fashion until I have the track formatted the way I want, maybe a 16-bar verse or a 12-bar verse, and then maybe a 8-bar chorus or something like that to that effect. And so we'll just fast forward to here. This is the next session. So this is how I formatted it out. You can see I took out some elements of the instrumentation to kind of create, dynamic in the track so it doesn't just sound like one loop just kind of going on and on and on forever and ever, so that it'll be inspiring to the artist, whatever artist decides to use this and write to it. You want it to definitely, get them inspired to write something, provocative or whatever. And basically, you want to make some money. So you definitely want somebody to like this. So I'll just kind of play a little bit of it. You'll see I created an intro by using minimal elements, and then I'll go into the track. So this will be the verse section where some of those other elements have dropped out, some of the synth elements have dropped out. This is where the artist would probably spit their verse or what have you. So now I'm ready to go ahead, get the artist in the studio and start recording the vocals. For this particular song, I used a local rap artist I've worked with before. His name is Rouge. And we recorded at a studio using ADL, it's the ADL 700. It's our newest tube channel strip. And we had used a blue Kiwi microphone with that as well, and just got awesome, phenomenal results out of the vocals. And I'm just
Kiwi's a killer mic.
Oh yeah,
it's really great. I used it on a record also.
So let's go to the session that has that that vocal in it. And I have the vocals muted now, so I'm going to show you that what I did was just go ahead and record. We usually, when I get with an artist, we'll decide, well, what do you feel comfortable recording first, verse or chorus, and I'll kind of go off of that. But sometimes you may want to just go ahead and record the chorus first. Sometimes I feel comfortable just recording the chorus first because I feel that's one of the more important elements of the song. It's the hook. It's what you want, it's the most important part, so you want to spend the most time or on it, and you want it to be, capture your audience and make them want to re-listen to the song over and over again. So you kind of want it perfected or what have you. But sometimes it just depends on the artist. Sometimes they just want to go ahead and do the verse first and then come back and do the chorus. But typically I'll just do the chorus first. That kind of establishes a foundation that they can build on. They know, oh, well, this chorus is nice, it's hot. And it kind of gets them excited about going ahead and doing the verse, So I'll just play one line, one track of the chorus so you can hear where we started from. All right.
This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog and B met Jay. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing my way. This could be like when Bonnie met Clyde, how Barack met Michelle, or when Kim met Ye. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing my way.
All right, so that's what we started out with. And I said, well, let's go ahead and just double it. A lot of times we'll double and stack things just to kind of create a thickness in it without having to resort to using maybe a chorus plugin or vocal doubler or something like that. I'll use those types of plugins and things, and Studio One has it. If maybe I've recorded something and I thought it was okay when we recorded it, but in retrospect when I started mixing it, I thought it could be thicker. I'll go ahead and use a plugin like the chorus plugin to kind of thicken things up. But in this case, I knew right offhand I wanted to go ahead and just double it and stack it. And so I did that 2 more times. We recorded the exact same thing 2 more times, and that's called a stack. And what I did was to leave one center and leave the other 2 pan left and right, and that kind of created a big chorus sound. So as far as the verse, it's going to sit in the middle, right? So when the chorus comes, I want it to sound big, so that's why I have this wide spread on the vocals that have been recorded only 3 times. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So here's solo, just 1 track. Let's go to the chorus.
This could be like when Bonnie met Clyde, how Barack met Michelle, or when Kim met Ye. Straight to the point.
All right, and then I'm going to solo the other 2 stacks or doubles that we did. Right, these are the ones that are panned. So now you hear a bigger spread in the stereo field.
This could be like when Bonnie met Clyde, how Barack met Michelle, or when Kim met Ye. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing my way.
You notice that it's not perfect. If I were doing a pop record and I were doing a chorus, it would have to be spot on. It would have to, every double or take would have to be the same as the first one if I were going to stack it like that. But in this case, I didn't want it to be that way because it adds more character to the chorus. It's not too perfect. It's not too sterile. So that's why I did it that way.
This could be like when Bonnie met.
And so here it is in reference and with the track. Let me just go back a couple of bars.
This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog and B met Jay. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing my way.
All right. So stacking vocals can definitely add thickness to the vocals, and it's without having to use a plugin to kind of synthesize those things, which sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out. As far as the verse, what we did was just record one of the main verse, and then what we did was stabs. So stabs are, or fill-ins, or, well, not fill-ins, but they're stabs. He'll emphasize certain words in the verse to just kind of bring more excitement to it. So I'll just play one solo.
I spotted her lil 5'5" with the brown eyes, long hair, dukes on, tats on her thighs. I had to know her involuntarily walking over. Tunnel vision, I'm locked and loaded, just trying to show her.
All right. And then what we did was just go ahead and record 2 sets of stabs, and of course we pan those left and right to kind of add a little more excitement. So let's listen to those.
I spotted her little 5'5" with the brown eyes, long hair, dukes on, tats on her thighs. I had to know her involuntarily walking over. Tunnel vision, I'm locked and loaded, just trying to show her my lethal weapon like Danny Glover when undercover. Hubba hubba, deep lover, love past the rubber. Golden rapper, no golden plaque, I'm a platinum.
All right, so you can see how he emphasized certain words going through the verse or what have you. And that's just to add more excitement, just to, make it not sound so, monotonous, I guess, throughout the verse. And that's basically how we recorded the verse and the vocals. What I'm going to do is go ahead to the next session here, which shows some of the mixing that I did on this song. This is the final version, or almost final. It's never final, It's never done until the record company says it's due. All right, so here's, I'll just play it, and then we'll talk about some of the things I did mix-wise, and then some of the automation that I did to kind of bring some pizzazz to the track or to the vocals.
This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog, when B met Jay. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing by. Wait, this could be like when Bonnie met Clyde, how Barack met Michelle, or when Kim met Ye. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing by. Wait, I spotted a little 5'5" with the brown eyes, long hair, dukes on, tats on her thighs. I had to know her involuntarily walking over. Tunnel vision, I'm locked and loaded, just trying to show her my lethal weapon like Danny Glover when undercover. Hubba hubba, deep lover, love past the rubber. Golden rapper, no golden plaque, I'm a platinum rapper who has yet to sell records to hit the register. Bet the mouthpiece touch your heart before it registers. Demeanor's mean, so all these others are scared of you. Could be tragic, could shut me down, could think I'm average. May holler and she asked for wallet, she's after dollars. I got my mojo, I'm fresher than bags of potpourri. That little Indian's me, baby, I'm Big Chief. I strolled over just hoping that you would notice me. She's all fence and I'm hoping that I could play some D. This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog, when B met Jay. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing by. Wait, this could be like when Bonnie met Clyde, how Barack met Michelle, or when Kim met Ye. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing by. Wait.
All right, so that's what we ended up with, pretty much. You notice I added some plugins mix-wise, but even before that, in the arrangement, I did some automation, and you'll notice that I did some dropouts. I did some automating of the panning. If you notice, I'll just go at this point. I did some automating of the snare pan, that 808 snare pan that kind of leads into the next loop. Let me just go ahead and play that so you can hear that. All right, so if you should have heard it just kind of pan left and right. Just kind of add that extra little thing, extra little flair, to the track. And how I did that, I just found the snare track in the mixer. All right, which is here. And if you actually right-click on the pan or the volume fader or the mute fader, you'll actually get a little menu, and you can choose Edit Pan Automation. Okay. And so what that'll do is create an automation lane for you where you can actually automate the panning of that track. And that's what I did. I went here to the freehand tool and I chose square. And basically I drew in the automation for that pan, and that's it. I probably tweaked it a little bit just to get exactly the way I wanted it. But, it's just one of those things that adds pizzazz to the track.
Yeah, I was gonna say I like to point out the drawing tools a lot because, especially when you've got snap mode and you've got whatever your quantized value is, this allows you to sort of do rhythmic patterns and things probably 10, 20 times faster than if you had to drop in a couple of points and then start copying and pasting, and it's way more accurate. And then with a modifier key, if you were drawing a shape, if you hold down the option key and continue drawing out, it'll actually make the shape larger. And if you hold down the command key, you can actually move and change the start point of where that cycle begins. So it's yeah. And then the very last of the drawing tools is the transform tool, and that is great because that really lets you then manipulate it. You can compress the size of the wave that you did, both vertically, horizontally. You can move it around. It's a very powerful tool.
It is a very powerful tool. If you're working with synths and you automate like a LFO or oscillator or anything like that, any element, using that transform tool will get you sounds that you never could have imagined because of the way it'll automate that particular parameter. You can get very creative without having to do a lot of work, you know. So that's how I automated the pan for the snare. What else did I do? In the vocals, let's just listen to that main vocal once more. I added a delay, but I only added it for certain sections of it.
This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog, when B met J. Straight to the point, nothing more for me to say. Enough with the small talk, shorty swing my way. This could be.
All right, so you kind of hear that echo, but it's not across the whole vocal. Because if I did have it across the whole vocal, it would be very cluttered and intelligible.
Were you automating the wet-dry mix, or were you automating bypass?
I was automating bypass,
Yeah.
which I found to actually be a little tricky to get to, but I'll show you real quick. When you create an automation track, so I'll just go ahead and create an automation track. Click OK. Let me choose my arrow tool. So this is my new automation track here. When you click here, all right, you can choose Add Remove. And you can automate any parameter that's listed on this side of the menu. So in my console, I want to find a track, which is Rouge 1. This is the actual fader or console channel in the mixer. And then I would go to Inserts. I'm sorry, not Inserts. It would be a send because I set the delay as a send. Here we go. So Rouge 4 has the send for effects 2, which is that delay. And it's already added it, so it won't show up in a list. I have to actually go to the delay send. So here it is, send mute for Rouge 4 sends. And I'll just show you that in the mixer. So Rouge 4 has effects 2, which is the delay. If I double click it, it brings up beat delay. All right, and you see it's disabled right now, and that's because I automated it. So if I actually play it,
This could be.
when I play it, you're going to see it come on, and then it'll go off. So it's sending the signal, and then it'll turn off so that it doesn't send the signal.
This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog, when B met J. Straight.
All right, so you see it going on and off, and that's this automation that I did here. Sure.
Zoom on the window in the upper left corner there. Up here at this window, and this is another thing that will allow you to do automation even faster with any parameter in Studio One, is anything that you touch shows up on that window, whether you touch volume or panning, or in this case, send mute. And once it's there, you can just move your mouse over the hand, and when the hand lights up, you would then actually be able to drag that onto the track, and now that automation lane is there. So that goes for automating anything, and I use that all the time, all day long.
Great. So like I said before, there are many different ways to get the same result sometimes. It really just depends on how you figure it out and what works best for you.
The nice thing with Studio One is that although those of us who use it more frequently and as our main DAW use the drag and drop a lot, If you're coming from another DAW or you're using this along with other DAWs, you can work in the way that's more comfortable and familiar to you, meaning if you want to use key commands, if you want to search out pull up and pull down menus, you can do all that. At the same time, as you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to get more comfortable with the drag and drop, because in the end, it's going to be so much faster, and you're going to find that you stay in that creative zone because you're just moving intuitively and grabbing what you want and making it happen, rather than sort of switching gears with your brain to think about a list of key commands or to go searching for stuff.
Cool. All right. So that's automating things. I did automate some other things, but we'll look at the actual console view here. Just kind of talk about some things here. So all of my tracks, what I'll typically do is take all of my instrumental tracks, and just by selecting all of my instrumental tracks, which I'm just clicking the first one, holding down Shift, clicking the last one, it selects all of them, and I can right-click and choose Add Bus for selected tracks. What that does is creates a track called Instrumental, which is right here. It's a bus, and all of my instrumental tracks will be bused there. So all of the instrument parts flow into this one channel, and I can do processing on that as a bus. You know, I can add a bus compressor if I want, or some EQing over the whole track. And then also what that does is allow me to have one fader to control the volume of the track as well. So let's see.
This
Key command. I have a lot of stuff on key commands, and it just makes it so much faster to work. So I really encourage you to learn key commands and create your own. And that's just in this Studio One menu, keyboard shortcuts. You'll see the list of the default ones. Some of them I've changed myself because it just makes more logical sense for me to assign it a certain way, like to a letter, like T for tracks, if I'm using modifier keys or something like that. Just do whatever makes sense to you, and it'll greatly speed up your workflow. All right, so I bused all of my instrumentals to one bus.
This could be like when Cliff met Claire, how Will met J-Dog when B met J.
So I can, isolate the track if I want to. If I can isolate the vocals by muting that instrumental bus if I want to, just if I want to work on the vocal mixing and not have to, click on every single mute here, that's time consuming. So, and then also, with that bus, like I said before, you can add processing to the overall instrumental track. Let's see. I did the same thing with the vocals. I just selected all the vocals, Shift, click, assign, add bus for selected tracks. And where is that? This is going to Vox, which is here. And then I just have some EQ over the whole vocal mix. So I kind of took a little bit out at 200 something hertz, to kind of clean up the vocals. See some other things. Anybody have any questions on anything that you see that maybe you're unclear about? We don't have much time left. Yes. Oh, anything you wanted to highlight, Byron? No, not really? Okay. And, this is just a basic mix. It's not mastered or anything. So for me to hear it at radio volume, I added a limiter. And that's to kind of control the peaks. And then sometimes I'll just bring the threshold down to kind of increase the volume as well. Let's look at another track really quickly. We have about 10 minutes or so. This is a pop track that I worked on for another local artist. Let me do this. Now you can turn that down because it's going to change the sample rate, so you may hear pop. Okay, great. to avoid the pop. All right, that's fine. All right, so this is a pop record that I did with a local artist named Justin Garner. And we'll be looking more at this with Khalik when he comes. We're going to talk about some things in here, vocal techniques, recording, mix things, that sort of thing. I just kind of wanted to look at it, show you, what I did, how I came up with some of the ideas that I came up with. So I'm going to just go ahead and play this with the vocals.
They say that love lasts forever, but I better change your mind. When I tell you what I did her, yeah, it was a damn crime. She left me in the dark and I know I deserve every tear. I broke her heart all my life. Yeah. I hope that you find a love better than me. I just want you to be happy, even if it kills me. I can't stop thinking about the time when we made love. Can't hold back my tears 'cause I need your love. Not like the movies. Girl comes back to me. She's gone. Not like the movies. When the girl comes running back to me. Baby, she's gone. Not like the movies. When my girl is running to my arms. Not like the movies.
All right, so that's that track. And just to kind of tell you how I came up with this, basically started from the template again, and I had some sounds loaded up. In my pop template, I keep Omnisphere, and it basically has a lot of synths and pads and that sort of thing. And so I'm just going through sounds, just kind of coming up with chord structures, that sort of thing. Anything that's kind of cool. Sometimes I may even just start on an acoustic guitar with some type of riff or what have you. And I think that's what I did, to be honest. So let's look at the acoustic guitar real quick. I have 3 tracks of acoustic guitar. These are groups, so I'm going to just play the good acoustic guitar part. So that's what I started off with, just this chord progression. I recorded that, and what I did was I always record my acoustic guitar in stereo using the XY condenser mic formation. It just sounds thicker to me, and then I double it. So I played the same chords twice, and of course pan left and right. So I get a thick kind of guitar sound. And once I did that, then I kind of came up with a little melody or a little riff. And I'll play that along with the other acoustic guitar part. All right. And so this is kind of a pop record. I mean, I could definitely add some acoustic drums, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have some edge to it. So I added more hip-hop style drums. And let's just kind of look at that, what I did with the drums. Kind of gives it a hip hop feel, but it has that pop element of the acoustic guitar, right? And then what did I do? After that, I just wanted to take it into a whole nother direction. I mean, it sounds like an acoustic kind of hip-hop type of thing, but I want to add some synths to it. So using Omnisphere, I kind of went through a bunch of different synths and that sort of thing, finding sounds that I thought were cool. So let's see. One I kind of call maybe the hook of the synth section, and this is that sound. Let's just release global mute and just do this. So this is kind of the hooky synth sound. And then I have another one that's stacked on top of that in the intro. This is actually the hook one. Sorry. All right. And then all together. Now, I added some other synths to the chorus, just kind of thicken things up and kind of change things up a little bit.
Can't stop thinking
So this is the pre-chorus going into the chorus. I'm gonna play this and then I'm gonna go back to the beginning and show some automation that I
Like the movies, girl comes back
did.
to
So this is setting up for the big chorus.
She's gone.
I just kind of removed some elements.
Not like the movies. When the girl comes
I added a deep bass synth to kind of hold down the bottom, just kind of make it more robust. Stack synths on top of synths to make a big sound. And actually the guitar is still going through that. It's just underneath. It's just there for fill to kind of give, it's not there to be heard. It's there to just be felt. Yeah, and to add rhythm to the track. All right, I'll just play for the chorus part, the guitar part. Just rhythm, acoustic guitar. All right. You know what? I'm going to, I'll show quickly what I did at the beginning, dealing with automation. I took the Pro EQ and I automated it so that I could filter out a lot of the frequencies of those two synths that are playing at the beginning, just to kind of just make it more dynamic going into the chorus. So let's play it. So it's filtered out. It's a bandpass filter. And then you saw the high pass, just the low pass, just kind of go up and just kind of open up the sound more. Also did that with the binaural pan on the same track to kind of make it mono. And then I open it up to a wide stereo spread. And with that, we're going to break for about 30 minutes, and then Khalik is going to come in, and we're going to talk more about this track, and Khalik is going to talk about some other things regarding mixing and vocals and that sort of thing. So we're going to break for 30 minutes.
Thanks, everybody.
Y'all give it up for Dominic.